look, JW, look what my husband bought me. He bought me before a little unicorn. And this is a little story that JW and I have together about being a galactic unicorn and about getting into people's brains and getting into people's minds. But anyway, I'm going off track. So as a galactic unicorn who has actually become very, very close with JW because he is such an inspiration and a very, very good supporter of HIT Talks. Thank you so much for always being with us at HIT Talks, supporting us, guiding us, being a loving friend. From your galactic unicorn, JW, I now give you your 8 minutes.
Hi guys, this is J.W. Wilson with the Learning Code Institute. Can you guys hear me? That's my problem. I can't tell whether anybody can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, I can't hear you guys. That's okay. Okay, so excuse me, guys. So here we go. I got it started. Sorry, y'all. Hi, I'm J.W. Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of the Learning Code Institute. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. It's exciting mainly because Vikki and I met at a Robert Kiyosaki event, I think in England, and we just had a wonderful time catching up. And there was some fascinating things that we ended up talking about, and that is that really what we know from neuroscience blends in wonderfully with what we really need to know about how we transform ourselves. One of the fascinating things is you've got about 6,000, so at the Institute, at the Learning Code Institute, which you can find at thelearningcode.com. It's just thelearningcode.com. You can see what we do, but what we've done is we reversed the 6,000 genes that control neurological function. You've got about 20,000 genes. 6,000 of these genes direct all your thoughts, all your actions, and all your behaviors. They build all of the neurological structures. And one of the fascinating things that has happened to us in our world is that we have started to develop programs and our learning programs that basically don't activate these 6,000 genes that turn on the neurological function that then create the learning. And this is why we have so much trouble in education. Think of all the things you memorized as a child and even memorize now. There might be, you know, to get through school, you probably memorized, depending on the school, private or public, anywhere from 100 to 200,000 to 500,000 things. How much do you remember now? The bottom line is not much. And we have a saying at the Institute, basically, what you're not aware of controls you. What you're aware of, you can control. And what we found is that by understanding kind of the neurobiology of what learning is, hold on, let me just get I put together a PowerPoint for this and then figured out that I couldn't figure out how to get it in there. Let me just get it up. Let me get it on slideshow so you can see it. So basically, so I'm going to use my notes from my PowerPoint. So what we really got to understand is what is learning? What is behavior change? Well, there is absolutely no behavior change or no learning unless two things happen. You have to turn on some of these 6,000 genes, and then when those genes turn on, they express proteins and enzymes that change the shape of your brain. So for my world of neurobiology, if you want to change your thoughts, your actions, or your behaviors, nothing is going to happen until you change these structures. So what we have done is we've developed a program to help people understand how to do that. And the first thing that we need to understand is that learning is biological. Just because you memorize something or took a test or read a book doesn't mean you're going to remember it. Think about this. What was the book you read 5 books ago? A lot of us can't even remember the name of it, much less more than 3 or 4% of what was in the book. Why is that? Well, mainly because learning, what we've done is we've created an educational system where learning is an event, not a process. So an event is reading a book, it's memorizing a list, it's taking a test. The problem with memorized information or information that we try to read or those kind of things is we only fire about 5% of neural structures in an area called Broca-Wernicke, where finite math and language are. There's a term in neuroscience called the Hebbian learning rule, which basically means the more neurons that fire, the more learning that happens. And so what we found was that when you go to event-based learning, you memorize a list, you read a book, you take a test, you study for a test. Those are all events. And what they do is they fire a very limited number of neurons in your left temporal lobe. And it allows you to memorize it and get it on the test. You can even get 100. The problem is long-term memory is in the rear associative areas behind your temple. Short-term memory in front of your temple, long-term memory behind your temple. We've developed an educational system and motivational systems and training systems that focus only in front of your temple. We help people pass tests. We help them read books. We have them think of the webinar, the last webinar, 7 webinars you went to 7 webinars ago. What can you remember? Even TED Talks that are great. We can remember less than 5% of a TED Talk 24 to 48 hours later. So, and that's mainly because they're not firing enough neurons in our brain. So what we've developed is basically systems that that help us do that. But one of the most fascinating things that we've found is that the quickest way to turn on these genes and the neurological structures, so neurological growth happens, is basically the same programs that we use in spiritual programs: meditation, yoga, mindfulness, observing our thoughts. All of those things activate the frontal part of your brain, which really opens up the gateway between working memory and long-term memory. So what we found is that the more authentic that you can be, well, a lot of us run around our lives, we try to be somebody who we're not, who our parents told us to be, or our teacher wanted us to be. We basically end up chasing things that we think can make us joyful outside of ourselves. We look for cars, we look for houses, we look for boyfriends, girlfriends, spouses, whatever, to make us happy. So what happens, we found with the learning code, when we want to get information from working memory to long-term memory, the quickest way to do that is, sounds really kind of weird, is being authentic ourselves and not judgmental. What judgment does is it raises a hormone in the body called cortisol. That's a stress hormone. And what it does is it limits our ability to learn. It limits our ability to change. So we've got this concept that the higher stress we're under, the better for us. But what we learn from neurobiology is totally the opposite. The higher the stress, the harder it is to change the existing neurological structures. So your existing neurological structures are made out of fats and proteins, like cheddar cheese. The neurons are made out of fats. The synapses, little buds that fit on top of the neurons, they're made out of proteins. It basically is the same consistency of mozzarella cheese in here. So your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors are all held in the sticky, gooey stuff. And the question is, how do we change that? I talked about the genes before. How do we turn on the genes that then change the structures? How do we move it from working memory to long-term memory? Well, the fascinating thing is, the more that you can practice a spiritual program of meditation, mindfulness, yoga, any of those kinds of things, being the observer, you literally reduce the stress hormone. By reducing the stress hormone, you open up these gateways into our most evolved neurological structures, and our learning happens 10 times faster. Think about it. When somebody told you you had to learn something and then you went to go try to learn it, do you remember it? That's why none of us remember algebra. You know, basically we all took algebra at school. None of us remember any of it. And yeah, we got an A or a B or whatever we got, but we don't remember anything about it. And that is because the information was not meaningful to us. What we need to do is develop learning systems to help create learning within the population that is going to do the learning. So as we as individuals want to learn something, what we have to do is figure out who we are at our deepest level. Have you ever looked at a child, an authentic child, before they're 2 years old? They're in bliss, they're in happiness. They're in joy all the time. Now, when their diaper gets full, they might get a little upset, or when they're hungry, they might get a little upset. But in general, what's happening is they're joyful all the time. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because they're out of judgment. When you're about 2 years old, you have some structures start to develop called your amygdala and some other parts in the middle of your brain that have you identify me, mine. You'll notice a 2-year-old says, mine, me, mine, mine. They start grabbing things and they're trying to figure out who they are versus who you are. Up until about 2 years old, children just wander around in bliss. And then at about 2 years old, we start to learn what's mine and what's yours, and we start to become separate. This is really difficult for us. Now we live our lives and we try to get joy in our life through getting things outside of ourselves. When we're born, just go on the web and look at any picture of a child under 2 having fun. That's basically what we do. The learning happens incredibly quick.
Yeah, I think if you can just, can you keep it flashing for 30 seconds?
What we really want to do is what Vikki is doing and everyone on this program is doing, is we are allowing our brains to go
and then it's flashing red because he can't see, but he's the guy that's
it shifts the blood flow to the third eye. It opens up the gateway to long-term memory and dramatically accelerates our ability to learn. So the key for all of us
so just give him 1 minute when it's flashing like that, then you can finish.
Even if we're not into spirituality,
thank you,
because it's going to affect our biology. It's going to lower our stress hormone, and it's going to increase the neurotransmitters that create learning. And so I just want to thank you guys for inviting me here. You can go to thelearningcode.com on the web and see what we do. And hopefully we're going to see each other a much more in the future. I appreciate it, and aloha. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
And JW, we appreciate you too as well. And it's always really good to have kind of confirmation from somebody that really understands brain science. That HIT Talks is created around the power of 8 for a reason. Because as we talk between, you say between 7 and 9 with all the work that you're doing, which is going to be massive all over the world. You do need to check that out, the Learning Code. And then we talk about the TED Talks being too long, because we do lose concentration because it's such a fast-paced world now. So now you can come to HIT Talks, can't you? And you can just have 8 minutes of inspiration, 8 minutes of hope, and 8 minutes of transformation. So there you go. It's just been confirmed by somebody who knows. Thank you so much for being with us, JW. And yes, we will, and all the guests.